I mean, this book won a Kirkus starred review. It's pretty good, you guys.
We're not just biased.
Yeah.
We are biased.
Yeah, but for good reason. Like, read the book and then you'll be biased too.
Yeah, more people need to read it. Mm-hmm. I think it is a classic folktale story.
It's fantastic. Hello and welcome to Your Favorite Book. I'm Mallory.
I'm Tanner.
We're siblings.
We like reading books.
And this week we will be talking about The Legend of the Dream Giants.
I know what you were about to say.
By Dustin Hansen.
This is a book by our dad. So you were about to say the title that we've always referred to this book as since we were kids.
Yes.
Which is The Legend of Bergvenig.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is not the title. I had to double
turn
check.
around and look. But this title is ostensibly better. It's just not the one that I know.
I prefer The Legend of Bergvenig.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, our dad is an author. The Legend of Bergvenig. Wow, I'm doing it already.
It's going to be difficult.
All right, it's just going to happen. We're going to call it The Legend of Bergvenig, okay? Just deal with it. The Legend of the Dream Giants is a book that he has been writing, that he finished writing, but he had been writing for a long time. Mm-hmm. He's written other books as well, but this one is one of our favorites of his. It's a middle grade fantasy about a very young giant named Berg who's looking for a family. Mm-hmm. It's short and sweet. It's perfectly paced. It's super efficient.
Yes.
And it's obviously one of our favorite books,
yes.
So we had to talk about it.
Yes. We have a very different perspective on this book than other audience members. Because, like we said, our father wrote it, and I was pretty young when he started writing it. I think he's been writing it for over a decade.
Maybe more.
Maybe more from where this idea maybe originally started from. But I remember when we were younger, he would work on his books, and if we were lucky, we could convince him to read us a chapter before bed.
Yeah.
As he would work on this and various other projects. And I always just loved the character of Bergvenig. He is a character that has come in a couple different types of projects from him, and so anytime we got a little glimpse of that story that has since become Legend of the Dream Giants, I was always so excited.
Yeah, he's taken a couple of different forms, and this one feels like the most distilled version of who this character is. Mm-hmm. He was part of a much larger cast of characters from a story that our dad was making while he was working in the video game industry full-time called North. And Berg was one of his favorite characters, as it was ours. Mm-hmm. And he gave Berg his own individual story apart from that world.
I think this kind of thing can happen pretty often with authors. This character is just so loving and complex and has such a fun set of circumstances around him in the world that he grew up in. Fun isn't great, but fun isn't good for him, but fun for an author to write.
Yeah,
when I think maybe when the author was writing this character, he was like, oh wow, this needs to be a whole thing.
I see.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just saying.
I don't know, and I'm assuming here, but...
No. I know what you mean, because I thought you were saying that Bergvenig is like, oh, he's such a fun character. I can't wait to write about it. Which maybe that's the impetus, but it's more like Berg is such a sad person.
He's very sad.
The things that happen to him are very sad.
Yeah.
He's a happy person, but oh my goodness, he's just so lonely. It's like, if you give this to a middle grade kid who's alone, it just breaks my heart because, they could just relate to it so strongly during a really difficult time in their childhood. Like middle school, late elementary school is so difficult.
Yeah.
And there are so many kids who feel abandoned and alone and taken advantage of. And that's what this story is for. It's for people like that. It's so heartwarming, but also heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So when you say like, Berg is such a fun story. That's not what you were saying.
Not fun.
I know what you meant.
I was meaning, if you're writing a character like Berg, it would probably feel so exciting as an author to explore that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And how can you not give him his own spotlight?
Yeah, I can imagine writing Berg, and Berg was a secondary character in a larger story, and being able to write a big friendly giant, because it is very similar to that.
Yeah.
That's one of the comparisons. And building a whole new world like that you didn't expect to come from a seemingly small character would be an exciting thing. So he had been working on this book for so long and pitching it to various people, never finding a right home with it. Finally, maybe 7 years ago. At this point, it doesn't matter. 2024, today. Don't want to date this video, but he found an editor and an editor with Shadow Mountain, a small publishing house in Utah, that published his book, and they wanted to include comics in the book, sequential art. It's not like a comic book, really.
Yeah.
But occasionally, after every chapter, there are dream sequences, illustrated dream sequences. That's a better way to say it, right? And they're just beautifully illustrated. Our dad is also
they're so perfect.
an artist. He can kind of do one of everything, which is infuriating.
Because he's really good at all of it.
He's good at all of it. But they really help establish a sense of tone and the sense of mystery and the idea that there is so much more hidden meaning in this book.
Yes.
We should briefly go over what this... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love all of the imagery that comes in through this book. A lot of the images are bears, stars, and wolves. Those are the biggest recurring kind of images, especially in those illustrated dream sequences. And I love all three of those things so deeply. Yeah. And it's so poetic to see the mirror between the dream sequence illustrations and the kind of really hard social emotional stuff that Berg is trying to figure out for himself.
Our dad also made the cover for his book.
Yeah, he illustrated it too. He did all of it.
Which is so cool. But I don't want to get too deeply into like the symbolism in this book, because he brings back things like the wolves in this book are attacking the bears. The bears represent the giants. In the main town where this story takes place, Eisenstadt, they have an iron wrought gate with a wolf mouth on the front. So it's like he ties all of those elements together where it doesn't feel disparate or separate from each other. But very briefly, the premise of this book is about a very young boy giant named Bergvenig. The first chapter just sucks you into this poor kid who's lonely, orphaned, and just surviving on his own by scavenging for food inside small towns and trying to avoid other people. And he will always replace food that he steals with treasures that he deems is far more valuable than things like a roast pig or some turnips, with things like a bird skull or a shiny stone river rock. And at the end of this first chapter, an old woman sees him and chases him away, and he starts crying, not because he's afraid of the old woman, but because of the people are afraid of him. Yeah.
There's so many great one-liners in this book that just are perfectly put, and that is one of them, where it hits you right in the heart to see that Berg isn't crying because he's afraid, but he's crying because they are afraid of him.
It's the best way. It's poetically said. It describes his misbelief perfectly. Yeah. And it happens at the end of the chapter, not at the beginning, where they show you what he wants really is to be with other people that love him for who he is. It's a found family story. And then ending it with a really hot line. Right? It's like, boom, that's what he wants, reader. That's what he's looking for in this story.
All of these words are so perfectly crafted. Yeah. And like, it's just so delicious to read it in and to take it in word by word. You can tell that the author really was purposeful about it.
The author?
I know.
It's weird to say it that way.
It is the author. I mean, it is weird to say it that way. Yeah. Of course it's the author.
The author. Our father, the author.
Our father, the author.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Part of why I love Berg's character so much is because it's so perfectly put in just that single first chapter. You can tell exactly who he is. And he's the type of person who loves so openly even though he gets nothing in return. And you can really see that when he takes, the harvested crops that the farmers are growing, and he empties out his whole treasure bag, and he's like, he knows that he overpaid, but he would never regret it. And it's just these tiny little trinkets that he slowly gathers and curates as he's wandering through the forest, and he's like, to him that is the best thing that he owns. It's the only thing he has, and he will willingly give that up and think that that's worth the price. It's just,
of course.
You know, when you're reading that as the reader, you're like, a whole roast pig for a bird skull?
Mm-hmm.
You could... Oh, it's just so...
Yeah, but it tells you a lot about who Berg is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's until, like, the later chapters that you discover, oh, he describes Berg as a boy giant.
Mm-hmm.
That you realize, that's why he doesn't
he's
understand.
a kid.
Yeah, he's just a kid, even though he's 20 feet tall or whatever. I imagine him as like 20 feet tall.
Yeah.
Bigger than a building.
I do too.
The little mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not just overpaying for food, but he's overpaying because he wants people to know just how generous he is so that they will like him.
Yeah. He's trying to show the people who have this legend of Unhold, who is this huge giant who would eat children and steal people from their homes.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to try to prove to them that he's different than Unhold and he's Berg, he's not Unhold.
Yeah.
So he leaves all these gifts and tokens to try to show, I feel bad for taking this. Please accept this payment in return.
Yeah, it's not only overpaying for people like him or overpaying as like just to exchange fairly for food, or for labor or whatever. It's also he's trying to repay for the mistakes of his forefathers.
Yeah.
So in this first chapter, I believe, there's a garden where he steals a bunch of turnips, and there's a sign, right? This happened in the first chapter of Unhold the Scary Giant.
Unhold the Scary Giant happens in the first chapter.
Seeing the sign?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I couldn't remember exactly.
Yeah.
It's a very short book, but every scene is necessary, and adding any more would just bloat the story and kind of distract you from the folk tale style nature of it all, which I absolutely love.
I do too.
Like, we talked about it in our previous episode, but like, I'm like a recovering epic fantasy addict. And I just crave shorter stories for some reason, and this really hit the spot for me for a number of reasons, but that was one of them, that it was just exactly right. But Berg blames the Unholds from the Unholds. Unhold, I think, is the German word for giant, isn't it?
I think so.
This book takes place in Germany, and so there are a lot of German words that American readers would be like, Unhold, oh wow, what
Bergwenig.
Bergwenig, yeah, but it's Bergwenig, right? Stuff like that, where it helps establish the tone that you're in a different place. It's not an American story, it's set in Germany, so just a small little detail. Anyway, he sees a sign of a giant that's painted like this ferocious beast, and Berg says that he kind of resents the giants from his past for establishing such a fearsome reputation and forcing him to live with that.
Yeah.
And so part of him overpaying is, like you were saying, paying for the mistakes of his past forefathers.
Yeah, trying to prove that he's different.
Yeah.
If you would just give me a chance. Oh.
That's all he wants. And so he's like kind of okay with getting caught because he really wants to prove to someone that he won't harm them, that he can actually help them.
Yeah.
So there's a scene early on in the book when he sees farmers trying to remove a gigantic stump. They've got like mules and teams of people. They can't remove it. And so as a way to pay for the food that he steals, he removes the stump for them. So it's stuff like that that happens again and again where he's showing, not telling, exactly what Berg's trying to do.
And after he takes from that farmer's house, he takes, turnips, potatoes, carrots, and then he's like, oh, I took more than I should have. So he lays all of them out on their front porch in lines of white, red, and orange, I think is what it is. And then as he's leaving, he sees that stump, and he remembers how much they struggled, and he's like, that's how I can do this. That's how I can repay it. So after he tears the stump, he walks away, and those same farmers end up hunting him and trying to find him. And the first thing he thinks is, did they not see the stump? Did they miss it? And it just breaks your heart that he's like, I tried my best. I tried to give you what I could give you, and are you just ignoring it, Ugh.
Yeah. It's so relatable for someone who is a people pleaser and who feels like what they're trying to do to show people that they're harmless isn't being interpreted correctly.
Yeah.
And they're being treated like an enemy for it.
Yeah.
So the entire book is just filled with that conflict where it's like Berg will do anything for other people to just recognize him as a person. And that's why it's so painful.
It is. It's hard.
Yeah. That's why it's a hard book for me to reread, is because emotionally it is
It hurts.
Yeah, it really does. But in the best way.
It does. It is in the best way. Like, sometimes when I'll read books that are kind of trying to hit that mark or are trying to explore emotional vulnerabilities, the characters are usually maybe a little bit more morally gray.
Mm-hmm.
Berg is not at all. He is just misunderstood at such a foundational level,
Mm-hmm.
and he only tries to do good. He never once tries to hurt anybody else until the end, but that's a different thing. So to be able to watch someone that innocently trying their hardest and to get no recognition and no chance, it just hurts. It's hard to read. The amount of times that I cry when I read this book is just
embarrassing.
The whole thing. From page 1 to page 200.
Yeah. No, I can completely relate. And the thing that makes it so painful is that Berg is never in a comfortable situation in the story until the very, very end. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what makes it so interesting to read, where it's like, he just keeps putting himself in more and more trouble. And it's not like, oh, it's so boring. He tries to help someone. They don't love him. No. The escalation of conflict in this story is
it's perfect.
As well as the pacing. Mm-hmm. And as well as Berg's character arc.
Yeah.
Right? Like, obviously, the lesson that he needs to learn, you could, if you're an adult, see it from a mile away. Mm-hmm. But that's not the point. Mm-mm. The point is, how does he get there? Yeah. Like, how does he learn to set boundaries and to be careful of the people that he trusts? Mm-hmm. And how does he find his own family?
Yeah, and how does he find peace within himself for knowing that he is good, even if the people around him can't see it?
Right. He doesn't need to prove to those people that he's kind-hearted and that he won't harm them. Mm-hmm. It's a complicated story. It's why it's interesting for an adult to read as well, because you have this really, and for some reason, I don't know why it hit me so much on this read-through. Obviously, we've read it before in the past. But he's also got this generational trauma where he's dealing with the reputation of the giants that came before him and him also hating himself for being really big because of that. And he just tries to make himself as small as possible throughout the story. I really noticed that. And I was like, wow. It's also just such a subtle way of explaining that Berg doesn't like himself because he's a giant.
Yeah.
And it's because of the giants that came before him. Mm-hmm. So there's also that part of his character arc that gets resolved throughout the story, but it is so subtle. Mm-hmm. Like, almost every element of this story is just never over-explained. Yeah. There's so much to interpret, like, even characters' motivations, not just thematically. Yeah. Like, there's a very important character named Unhold, who's an older ancient giant. And you don't really know if you can trust him, but he looks out for Berg when he finds himself in trouble. Mm-hmm. And occasionally Unhold will do things like capture Berg, or like steal Berg's things, or not talk to him, where it doesn't quite make sense what he wants.
What is he going for?
And Berg tries to speak to Unhold, but Unhold is basically nonverbal. Yeah. So it's this grand sense of mystery where it's
fantastic.
Like, Berg is mad at this Unhold character. Mm-hmm. He's almost more of like a symbol than he is an actual character in the story. Yeah. Where he represents this resentment that Berg has for giants.
Well, and it's interesting to see Berg take the side of the humans from the beginning. Even Berg believes the Unhold tales. Yeah. Which is interesting because Berg is a giant himself. You would think there'd be maybe more compassion or more benefit of the doubt, but he's so young and so little, and he sees the consequences of Unhold's legend himself, even though he hasn't done any of those things. So it's interesting. It's complex.
Yeah, it is. And the reason why he chooses to be with the humans is because he doesn't want to suffer the consequences of the reputation that the giants before him have established. So he thinks once he has the acceptance of those humans that he'll be seen as human too. Yeah. Right? But Unhold helps him accept that part of himself that is a giant. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do you wield your power? Because he is extremely strong. Mm-hmm. But use it for good. And at one point, do you need to use it to harm other people, to defend the people that you love? Yeah. Which is such a good, complex question. I know.
Also, can we go back to the nonverbal thing? Yeah. There's so much in this story that relies on nonverbal storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, the comics themselves.
Yeah, the comics have no words. It's all images. But even Berg himself does not speak much. Like there's so much nonverbal storytelling here that our dad, the author, handles masterfully.
Yeah.
Like, being able to describe the body language of the strangers that he encounters or how Berg responds when he gets caught tells you so much about his intentions and what he's looking for without saying, Berg was sad and wanted a friend.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yep, it's that showing versus telling thing. So I don't know if we've done a very good job of explaining what's happening in the story at this point.
Probably not yet, sorry.
No, it's, I mean, I'm getting scatterbrained and distracted on tangents, but Berg, the main plot of the story, Berg finds himself in trouble trying to help other people, and eventually he gets captured by this town called Eisenstadt. The city of iron? I think that's what it means. Again, it's a German word, right? I don't know what it means. It's just the word that he's used to describe this place for like my entire life, basically. And it feels so real to me, I think, for that reason. But there is a very manipulative character in the story called the Bear. We never know his real name. Who lies to Berg to make him docile or to take advantage of him.
To tame him.
Yeah, and he's the exact right character for Berg to confront his misbelief with.
Yeah.
Because Berg's problem is that he trusts everyone, no matter who they are, at their word, and he will do anything for their approval, even if he knows that they're going to hurt him. He doesn't care. Like, their approval from the people that he admires is the most important thing to him.
And to find that safety within that, too. To have a community that will help keep you safe, instead of just Berg being by himself, trying to keep himself safe.
Yeah. So he gets captured by the people of Eisenstadt. They throw ropes over him. And biting ropes with, like, copper hooks on the end that sink into his skin. Oh, my God. It's just so sad. Like, the amount of physical trauma that Berg experiences. It's horrible. And when you know that it's a kid, it's like it's so much more painful.
Yeah.
All these adults, they don't understand who Berg is. They just see him as this ferocious monster.
Yeah.
And the mayor is the first human that Berg meets that tells him, that tames the people around him and says, wait, we can talk to Berg. He's a friendly giant that we can take advantage of.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
He does meet Anya before he meets the mayor.
True. Yeah.
Anya is another side character here who, she's so sweet and cute, and I love her so much. Berg, during his time around Eisenstadt, he wanders into the town initially, and it's during the night, everybody's sleeping, and he runs into a little girl with fiery red hair, and he instantly is like, trying to like look down, trying to be calm, trying to hide, and she instantly is like, oh, hi, I'm Anya, who are you? You know, like, she instantly sees him as a friend first, and Berg is experiencing hope for the first time, and he doesn't know what this kind of love and excitement is, and she talks to him, and she shows him a fun little magic trick with one of the magical elements in this world building, and he is, like, enamored and amazed at this young little girl who so fearlessly is okay with him.
Yeah.
And this is the cutest thing in the whole world. She gets him, she's like, oh, let me show you a magic trick with the magic stardust that you have. And she sprinkles it and blows it into the window of the candy store. Bartle Brickles?
Something like that.
Candy store. And the candy store owner, the stardust, like, is like Sandman dream dust, basically. And he gets some candy for them and drops it out the window, and she perfectly catches it, and then she gives it to Berg to try, and it's these lemon drop, sandied lemon drop candies or whatever. And he tastes them and is like,
this is amazing.
And she's like,
never had candy before.
Yeah, it's the cutest, sweetest, softest moment of just pure curiosity and childlike wonder that is captured so effectively. It's fantastic. And she's like, okay, well, come back with more sand. Like, I want to do more tricks. This is amazing. Let's be friends. And so he goes back to the cavern that Unhold lives in, and then comes back, and during the day, and that's when he gets captured and that
Yes.
whole mayor stuff happens.
Yes, I skipped a few steps, I realized.
It's just, that is one of my favorite scenes in the whole entire book.
No, I'm really glad
Yeah.
you mentioned that. It's really important. Anya is the character that represents someone that you can trust, that you should want to please and make happy, because they also want to do the same thing for you.
Yeah.
So every character is distilled to their absolute essential role in the story, and that's what Anya fulfills.
Yeah.
Unhold, after Berg runs away from the farmers that were hunting him for removing the stump at the beginning of the story, some painful physical things happen to him, gets stung by bees, all sorts of other terrible things, shot in the arm with a gun. Unhold captures Berg and heals him in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a scary moment because you don't know if Unhold is a good character or
Yeah,
not.
you don't know where his loyalties lie or what he wants from Berg.
Mm-hmm.
And you as the reader also have heard all the horrifying, terrible stories of the things Unhold has done. So even you're like...
So Berg, because he's afraid of giants, he's even chained up in Berg's forge, basically.
Yeah.
So he breaks his chains, frees himself, and investigates Berg's home, and he sees that his home is...
Unhold's home.
Unhold's, sorry.
You're good.
His cave home. And he sees that it's filled with treasures from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Like the same types of treasures that he collects. So it's kind of like a giant thing.
Yeah.
Where they're fascinated
Yeah, I
with
loved
humans.
it. It was like kind of like a dragon and their horde a little bit.
Yeah, it was interesting. And it's kind of like, this is the currency that giants use.
Yeah.
Like, even a tiny silver hairbrush, that would be like, wow, look at this beautiful, valuable thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting world building for a giant. Like, it's a new, I don't know, people think giants in fantasy or folklore stuff, and it's like this horrible, terrible cyclops thing. They're stupid and big.
Yeah.
But Berg and Unhold aren't stupid. They're very complex, sensitive creatures.
Yeah.
And part of it is like finding a ton of value in mundane objects. And in the center of the hoard, there's a gigantic blue stone, right? The meteor.
Yeah.
And Berg collects some of the sand from that meteor. And as soon as he touches it, he feels a grand sense of comfort, and he kind of has a flashback from his past.
Yeah.
He thinks about his mom, and he thinks about Watchful Moon. And you realize that he wants more of that because it connects him with his past.
Yeah.
So he takes some of the Stardew sand into the city of Eisenstock, and he uses that to give people dreams accidentally. He doesn't know how it works at first. And Anya teaches him, like, you can use the sand to give people dreams and suggest them to do things for you in return.
Yeah, like kind of encourage them to sleepwalk.
Yeah. So Berg is kind of like a mixture between the Sandman and a giant.
Yeah.
Or at least that's where the title of the book comes from, Legend of the Dream Giants. Which is so great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So he doesn't over-explain these things in the story. He shows you Berg exploring the cave, finding all these valuables.
Which is such a good descriptor moment. I love the scene inside of his cave and the fallen meteor, and it's so descriptive, and you feel like you're in the cave. It's so cool.
Yeah, but Berg never says, "Oh, Unhold is a dream giant, and he uses this sand to in exchange or to steal these valuables from people." He never says that. This is stuff that you just get to put together as a reader.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic.
And if you're a kid, it's a real sense of mystery thing, I would imagine. I mean, I would love to be able to read this story for the first time when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because I know that it would give me this grand sense of wonder. At this point, I know I'm so close to the story that kind of all the wonder from it is kind of taken out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's still there for me, even as an adult. It's not just quite as potent.
Yeah, it's still very well done. Like, I've read this multiple times and in multiple different iterations, but even still, rereading it this time, I'm still like, ooh, this is so intriguing, and I love to see how the pieces fit together, and it's a very slow-moving mystery. Like, he gives you each piece as you need it, and it's just perfectly, slowly put together.
Yes, and I think the key is that he never tells you what the answers are. Like Berg's goal at the beginning of the story, I think someone less experienced might be like, Berg, when he was born, he's like, I just want to be a dream giant when I grow up, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he comes to that destiny eventually. But it's never like, I'm going to work towards this goal. It's, I'm going to find my family, and, oh, the dream sand is here. I wonder how that works.
Yeah.
And it's not until, like, basically, there isn't an epilogue, but it's a very short chapter at the very end of a denouement where he and Anya, sorry, spoiler alert, I know, go to become dream giants together. To give other people dreams.
It's so touching.
Cute. But, like, he doesn't outright say those things throughout the book, where he's like, I'm going to look for the dream giants, this great mystery. It's just happening in the background.
Yeah.
And the main thrust of the story is Berg trying to find a family.
Yeah.
And being manipulated by the mayor, doing terrible things for him in order to be accepted.
Yeah.
That's where the stuff is explained, and it's important. And that's why, like, I love that the magic and the mystery of what the dream giants are, where the star blue sand comes from, what it really does, just hangs in the background. It doesn't have to be explicitly stated how this stuff works.
No, your audience will pick it up.
Yeah, and even if they don't, I mean, having that sense of mystery is more than enough.
Yeah,
like,
it's fantastic.
That's what I love in a story more than anything. Like, leave those things unsaid.
Yeah. It's more fun to try to piece it together yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to use a Star Wars comparison.
Okay.
In Star Wars, the Force is like, it should be this mysterious thing. You don't even know what you can do with it. Like, you can pick up objects. You can push people away. You can read minds with it. It's a soft magic system. That shouldn't be what the story is about. It should be about the main character, Luke, finding out his father's Darth Vader, forgiving him, saving the, or destroying the Empire, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff. And then the Force should just be, you know, in the background.
Yeah.
But in future Star Wars movies, they explain, like, the Force, you have to have a certain number of midichlorians. Once you get into the science of explaining that stuff,
it's boring.
The magic is gone.
It's not fun anymore.
So the fact that the star blue sand has multiple uses, and Berg doesn't, like, learn how to use it to win the day at the end for the final conflict, is really important, I think, for maintaining that sense of mystery.
And it takes a lot to be that vulnerable as an author. To be able to... I mean, it's vulnerable to write a book at all. But to write one this emotionally charged and this emotionally vulnerable is fascinating. I mean, this book won a Kirkus starred review. It's pretty damn good, you guys.
We're not just biased. We are biased.
Yeah, but for good reason. Like, read the book and then you'll be biased too.
Yeah, more people need to read it. I think it is a classic folktale story.
It's fantastic. Can I say one thing I don't like?
Sure, I'll allow it.
The narrator. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Narrator, you did a great job. You did a great job.
You're just filled with hate in your heart.
To be fair, I'm extremely biased because I grew up with our father reading it out loud to us the way that he perfectly intended it to be read. So, to be fair, I wouldn't like any narrator, but he doesn't pronounce some of the things correctly.
Moira Quirk herself.
You know what? I don't think I'd like it.
Wow.
Which, I adore Moira Quirk.
We all do.
He does a fine job. Really, it's a fine narration. It's just personal opinion on not liking it.
Some of the pronunciations.
Some of the pronunciations aren't great. He pronounces Berg differently throughout the book. Yeah. And he also says unhold. And
instead of
it's unhold.
At least that's how we say it. We don't even know if it's like that's how you would say it in German.
Yeah, but either way, that's how the author intended it to be. And I know for a fact that is true. If not, we're going to stop the podcast right here. No, I'm just kidding.
Give him a call, ask him.
And I also... There's so many important things in the way this book is written, such as the character of Watchful Moon, which is the moon and how she shines her light for Berg to see the things that he needs to see, and it's watchful dash moon. Like the spelling of that is so important, and there's like dream dash sand and sleeping dash city. Like there's so many distinct spellings that happen in this book that really inform the reader, in my opinion.
That you can't get from just an audio
You can't get just listening. And that's not a narrator issue. That's just...
Format issue.
It's a format thing, you know? And it should... This is the kind of book that should be read, especially because of the illustrated dream sequences.
You don't get... Like, the reader doesn't even describe them.
The narrator fumbled it.
In the audible.
Or the producer fumbled it, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think so, too.
The illustrations are fantastic and impactful and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And you just can't get them by listening.
Yeah. Yeah, you find more hidden meaning from reading the book.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hidden meaning in the book itself, just throughout the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have my own theories about, like, who Watchful Moon is or what it represents to Berg.
Yeah.
Because he lost his mother. I mean, it's not really complex stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As an adult and being so close to the story, some of those things, like, are obvious to me now.
Yeah.
Or were obvious to me when I was watching the book being created.
Mm-hmm.
But even stuff like, there's a very important scene throughout the book where the mayor, he tells Berg to, like, watch over the city and make sure to keep Unhold from entering.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let a rat or a giant in. Like, you're protecting us.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of, like, see what he can make Berg do.
Yeah.
And Berg is so malleable.
Mm-hmm.
That he'll do anything for the mayor. And the mayor keeps asking him for increasingly challenging things, and you don't know what his ultimate goal is with Berg. And it's, again, another sense of mystery thing. Like, he just trusts the reader to enjoy the story for less information.
Yeah.
Right? That's something that most authors don't do. That's something that I don't do. I'm like, I have to explain everything to you. Like, you're having fun, right? But eventually Berg is asked by the mayor to cut down this great tree in the forest, the great ash tree. And it's this gigantic tree, even for a giant. Huge! And he gives Berg an axe, and he says, go cut it down. Travels for 2 weeks, cuts down the tree. Berg is really happy at first because he's like, I've found my family.
I did the task. He's going to be proud of me.
Yeah. And he's cutting down the tree, and it's taking him an entire day, and he's only halfway through. And he realizes the
price.
The price of doing that. And he realizes that it's a mistake that he made halfway through his task, but he has to complete it because the tree's already dead.
Yeah.
He's cut it halfway down.
Yeah.
And, but he can't finish the task on his own. He's not strong enough. And he doesn't know how he'll be able to finish it. So he's kind of in, like, he's failed the mayor because he can't complete this task to cut down the tree, and he's also gone against his own moral code for someone that he doesn't know.
For killing the deep wild woods.
Yes, and he doesn't know if it's right for the mayor to ask him to do these things, but he doesn't know if he trusts the mayor.
Yeah, he doesn't know if he's allowed to question that.
Yeah, he has no reason to question the mayor's intentions, so that's why he does it anyway. And then that's when Unhold shows up and helps him push over the tree, which is such an interesting decision. This is probably my favorite scene in the book. And if I'm being honest, it's still shrouded in mystery for me, the intention of this scene.
Yeah.
Because it feels like there's so much symbolism in Berg sacrificing himself for another person, doing the ultimate thing, cutting down this tree. And Berg feels like he's a part of the forest and he's done something so wrong to harm it for someone else. Anyone, really, going against his own moral code.
Yeah.
And having Unhold show up even at this time and helping Berg to push down the tree when Unhold, you think, would show up and say, like, hey, don't do that. And they would get into a fight.
Can I say something?
No.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll allow it.
This is, I don't know, it's another complex thing where it's kind of nebulous and you kind of have to choose what you think of it as the reader. And to me, it kind of feels like Unhold is kind of the father figure in this story. And he's been watching Berg and he sees Berg struggling. And Berg still doesn't know what to do, but Unhold is still there and is like, I will help you do what you want to do because I am here for you and your journey. And I think it's maybe that kind of thing of like maybe a parent watching their child stumble and falter and try to figure out who they are and still be standing there even if they're doing not what they exactly want to do or know how to do. I don't know. It could be one of many options.
Yeah, but that's what I love about the book.
It's so emotionally potent. Like
I also don't mind.
Life is complex.
It is. I also don't mind not being able to interpret this scene. Like, we know why Berg is doing it. The emotional complexity is there. But it's having Unhold help him make this mistake that makes you as an adult think, like, what are you trying to say with this scene? Yeah. Like, I still don't know. It's fascinating. It is. That's one interpretation. It's completely valid.
It could go so many different ways.
Yeah, it really could. And even at the end of that scene, Unhold helps Berg push down the tree. It rolls down the mountain, causes all this chaos. And then that night they sit together and eat some food, and Berg is talking to Unhold, and Unhold won't say a word.
Mm-hmm.
And Berg tells him about the story of his mother dying. And this happens at the exact right point in the book. I mean, it's so painful and beautiful.
So,
and he tells Unhold that men killed his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And she told him to be small and to hide inside this tree. Don't let other people see you.
Mm-hmm.
So again, reinforcing that idea of Berg hating that he's a giant because it means that people will try to kill you.
And he even said, if I was small enough, Mom could have hidden with me and we'd both be safe.
God, it's so sad. But everything is, like, there's a reason for everything in this book. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why he wants to be small. There's a reason why Unhold is there. He represents more than just he's a parent.
Yeah.
He's a complex parent.
Mm-hmm.
But he also represents, Berg hating that he's a giant.
What he could become in both good and bad.
Right. Like, he's
so
afraid of that
directions.
future. Unhold is lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people don't love Unhold. But Unhold doesn't seem to mind that.
Yeah.
He seems to have found a balance with himself and the people of Eisenstadt, even though Eisenstadt hates Unhold.
Mm-hmm.
But Unhold has done nothing to harm them, at least as far as we can see.
Yeah.
We don't know how old he is.
Mm-hmm.
But at least we know that there were giants in the past who did cause chaos to humans, and there's a reason legitimate reason for their fear and apprehension towards them.
Mm-hmm.
And so Unhold is kind of this figure who will teach Berg how to live a more balanced life.
Yeah.
So he's an important part, a very essential part of Berg's transformation throughout the story. Berg tells Unhold that his mother had a satchel that she gave him, and that's the one that he used to keep all of his treasures in. And when Unhold captured Berg at the beginning of the story, he stole Berg's satchel.
Yeah.
And he told Unhold, that's my satchel, it's my mother's, and I want it back. And then Unhold, instead of giving it to him, uses the star blue sand to put Berg to sleep because it wasn't giant. And he runs away.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get his satchel back.
And you're just left questioning, like, why were you,
Who's Unhold?
Yeah, what?
What is he doing?
It's fantastic.
And I love that it's never explained.
Me too.
Unhold is simultaneously there for Berg to protect him and to help him make his greatest mistake. And he's also kind of a dick. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what a wonderfully complex character.
Oh, it's so fun.
And it's never explained. So if you like that type of storytelling where it's like, you're reading this not only for the important lessons that Berg learns along the way, but there's a lot of questions that you feel better not answered by the end of the book.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic.
It takes a lot of courage to do that as an author. Like, I would feel like, okay, what's the point of Unhold and Berg?
And have to make sure the audience knows where it was coming from, what it meant, what happened afterwards.
How it changed the main character. Like, Berg makes the most sense in this story, as well as Anya and the mayor.
Yeah.
Okay, Unhold might be the only character.
I think Unhold's the exception there.
But I love that it's just one character who's like that.
I mean, it's the whole legend of the giants.
Yeah.
Like, I like that it doesn't have any answers, because a lot of legends don't.
No.
And you don't know how much is true and how much is made up, how much is exaggerated and stuff like that. So it fits so well.
And it also helps that the main character is that legend.
Yeah.
So he can make it for himself. And maybe that's one of the ways you can interpret this story. So we each come with our own legacy behind us, right? But how do we define that for ourselves? I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't read a book with a character like Unhold in it before. I love that.
It's
a strange, mysterious character who's more legend than person, with strange motivations.
It's so unique.
Yeah, and it's never explained. That's the really important thing, is you can never explain that.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Don't explain it.
And it doesn't feel unsatisfying. Because Berg is our main character. And his motivations make perfect sense.
And he finds closure about the legend of Unhold and the legend of the Dream Giants at the end, so it
is satisfying. Yeah, it's satisfying for those reasons.
Yeah.
There is a good resolution with him and Unhold, but you still have questions like, what happened? What does it mean at the ash tree? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I may never know.
It's so exciting.
It really is. Yeah. So Berg, he takes the ash tree back to the mayor. He feels horribly guilty about it. He buries the axe, which he sees as a representation of his greatest mistake. More meaning there, more hidden meaning and symbolism.
Hatchet.
Bury the hatchet. You could read into that as much as you want. I don't even know what my interpretation of that is. I just take the direct, he was burying his greatest sin.
Yeah.
But, there's obviously more stuff there. And then he plants the ash tree in the middle of this flat space that the mayor and the city of Eisenstadt have prepared while he was away cutting down the pole. And then he goes back in the barn, and Anya and Unhold tell him to run away. Unhold, in his nonverbal way, finds Berg. While the mayor tells Berg that this pole is like the start of your new home. We're going to build you your own home. It's like, but I've read the story and I know it's coming. And even as the reader, you could feel the sense of apprehension.
You can feel it.
Because characters like Anya tell Berg, like, be careful.
Well, and the readers are more close to probably Anya than they are to Berg. You can see how Berg is so naive and believes all of it, but you, especially as an adult, you can see it coming. You can hear how the mayor speaks to him, and you can see how much he's manipulating him, and you're like, run, go with Unhold, go with Anya, get out.
But he doesn't do it.
So sad, because he wants to belong. He's like, okay, I'll ignore all the red flags.
Yep. It's a good way of, like, telling a story about a character who makes their own mistakes instead of being forced to make them.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that he can really learn his lesson, is that Berg Venig has to be betrayed by people that he trusts. Oh, man, it's painful.
It's heartbreaking.
So, spoiler alert for the end of the story. I don't think we'll spend too much time on it. But Berg Venig, he's taken from his barn. He's been kept in a barn this whole time. He's chained up. He can break from his chains at any time. He's extremely strong.
But he chooses not to.
He chooses not to. And then his home is finally completed, and it's this gigantic circus tent. And he is going to be the main act with the cage in the middle. And at this point, Anya tells Berg about, like, the history of the giants, why the people don't trust Unhold. She knows that he's a good giant and that she should trust him and to stay away from the mayor.
And she also tells him that the mayor has been lying about Berg, and the mayor has spread lies that Berg ran away and then chopped down the tree and brought it back as, like, repentance, and that Berg killed all the soldiers that he sent out to find him. So he's been spreading lies about Berg to encourage the mythos of the evil giants. And Berg's like, well, some of that is true, but not all of it is true. And Anya says, the best lies are built on half-truths, which is such a fantastic line, and Berg carries that with him for these final ending scenes of him being like, he can sense those half-truths, but he can't tell which ones are true and which ones are lies. Ugh!
Anya telling him that stuff happens at the exact right time. That's like, the pacing is perfect. Like, all the events happen for a reason. They change Berg in just the right way. And the conversations that Berg has with characters like Anya and Unhold never overstay their welcome. It's just the exact right amount. And she teaches him how
to smile.
Yeah, which is such a sweet kind of fun and games type
It's so
scene,
perfect.
where, like, she teaches him how to socialize with human beings. And it comes back in the end. It doesn't happen for no reason.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it really is.
It's all tied together.
So from then on out, Berg, he sees the cage, and the mayor locks him in forcefully, because Berg realizes, I should have listened to Anya this entire time. And he's paying attention to every word the mayor says to him. Like, should I not trust him anymore? He realizes the mistake he's made, but it's too late. I don't know if we'll go over the exact details of the climax.
Yeah.
But the crowd comes in to see Berg, this ferocious giant, and the mayor. I mean, it's so painful. It's the hardest part of the book. But at the same time, Berg has learned his lesson. So there is a bit of, like, comfort there.
Yeah.
Right? Where he decides not to perform on command for the mayor when he's finally unveiled. Yeah. And instead of being a ferocious giant, he smiles for the people. And the people are like, oh, he's kind of cute.
It just makes me so emotional, you guys. His defiant smile, his courageous smile, what?
Yeah, it's so adorable. It's just a beautiful story.
It's
I don't know if there's anything more that we need to be said.
You just need to read it yourself. It's so perfectly written, perfectly paced. The characters are so lovable, most of them. And the ending
is brilliant.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really, really good. You just got to read it for yourself. We're biased, but it's honestly a fantastic book.
Everybody that I've recommended it to has loved it just as much as I have loved it.
Yeah, and more people need to read it.
Yeah.
I really do think it will... it should be like a very
a classic.
well-known classic folktale.
Yep.
You learn so many important lessons for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's possible because some of the messages are so interpretive.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. Oh my goodness.
It's fantastic. Because it's the kind of book that you can read at any point in your life.
Yeah.
And you will take out what you need from it.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different lessons you can take away, and it will be different every time you read it, which is great.
Yeah. It was for me this time. For me, it was asking myself, well, how do you know who you should trust? Because it's obviously important to find people that you trust, but how do you know if someone's lying to you?
Yeah.
And I think for me, the answer was you need to listen to people like Anya in your life. Because if Berg had listened to Anya, maybe he would have been more skeptical of the mayor.
Yeah.
So, but the answer is it's hard to know who you can trust or listen to or give your heart to, because there's always the risk that they're going to let you down.
Yeah. Oh, it's so difficult.
Hopefully there are very few people in your life like the mayor.
Yeah, hopefully.
Maybe that's the answer. Just get lucky.
Yes. Yeah, just get lucky. Just get good people, and if you have any bad ones, just chop them down with your axe.
Yeah. But maybe
kidding.
Metaphorically.
Yeah.
Once those people have betrayed you.
Yeah.
You cut them out of your life and you stop trying to make them happy.
Yeah. You can only make yourself happy.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's a really good book. If I only have one criticism, and it's not even a criticism because it would make the book worse. The Star Blue Sand, you can use it to manipulate people, and I thought it would be cool if the mayor had a scene where he used it to manipulate some of the townsfolk to like hate the giants even more.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
But it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
Because the mayor, when he unveils Berg Venig, he's trying to make people believe that he's this ferocious
giant
beast.
tamer. Oh,
But
yeah.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Or that he's a giant tamer. Because that's who the mayor is, right? He's self-aggrandizing.
Yeah.
Right? And the Star Blue Sand feels like the perfect, like if he knew that existed and that you could use it to manipulate
he could take
people.
all of that power.
Yeah. And if Berg was the only person who could use the Star Blue Sand to manipulate people, then he'd be like, oh, Berg, go tell these people that I'm great.
Yeah.
And they should vote for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's becoming a mayor running for mayor campaign.
It changes the story completely.
Unhold versus mayor.
Yeah, it could be more of a takedown of like capitalism and social commentary stuff, which is a part of storytelling that I love, which is why I love Terry Pratchett so much.
Yeah.
But it's not even a critique because it ruins the mystique of the Star Blue Sand.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
So is this one of your favorite books?
Yes! 110% yes.
And I assume you'd recommend it.
Yes, I have, and I will continue to do so.
Cool.
To everybody I meet. Hi, my name's Mallory Hansen. You should read
Have you read The Legend of the Dream Berg?
Yes. Have you read The Legend of Berg Wingberg?
I know I have.
Is this one of your favorite books?
Yes, of course.
Yay!
Without a doubt, it's spectacular.
Would you recommend it?
Yes, of course.
Yay!
I've been loving Middle Grade lately.
Recommending it now.
Yeah.
Read it. Read it and weep, actually.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. If you're not subscribed yet, please do so. We release a video review like this every week. We have a very exciting month coming up. Not in September, in October. So stick around for that.
Thanks for joining us.
Time.
Please read this book. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's good for all ages.
It really is. Earnestly.
Yes.
I think if you like the type of books that we read on this podcast, then you'll really love this one as well.
I also think if you don't like the type of books we read on this podcast, you will also like this book.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
You should just read it and find it for yourself. Don't take our word for it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a fast read.
Yeah.
So
leave a comment. If you have read this book, what do you think? Drop a like, please. That helps us out. Bye.
Bye. I was going to say it's Dad's birthday tomorrow.
Oh.